This is the all-new second generation Volkswagen Amarok, and since it launched earlier this year in Australia, it's proved us to have a really nice balance of on-road manners and off-road ability. But now it's time for a true test of mettle. We're driving this fleet of Amaroks all the way from Broken Hill, about 4,000 kilometres to Birdsville. There'll be challenges along the way, including changing conditions and this weather, but if we make it, there's an event waiting for us that's unlike almost anything else on the planet. The original plan would have seen our fleet of 13 Amaroks set out from Coober PD, head north to Dalhousie Springs, before crossing the Simpson Desert from west to east via the Erabina track, and then on to Birdsville. However, over the days and weeks leading up to the trip, Queensland and northern New South Wales had experienced highly irregular rainfall, and our start point moved to Broken Hill with a new route through Arkaroola and the Flinders Ranges. But even that plan wouldn't last long. Well, sometimes even the best laid plans require a bit of a rethink on the fly, and today there have been several actually. The deeply unseasonal weather conditions have continued overnight, which meant more road closures in the direction of Arkaroola, where we're heading first thing this morning, which meant doubling back to Broken Hill and a complete rethink of the day. What hasn't changed or missed a beat though is that the mighty Amarok, and tomorrow, well, tomorrow is another day. Our convoy consisted of a mix of Aventura, Panamericana and Style variants, all powered by the TDI 600 3-litre V6 diesel turbo. However, each had been customised with a selection of Volkswagen's broad range of original equipment accessories. In the case of our Aventura, it had a set of 18-inch Amadora wheels and Goodrich AT rubber in place of the standard 21-inch fitment. It also had a two-person rooftop tent, canopy with electric popping rear and side glass, and a draw system. Well, we had a very early start this morning. It's not even 7 o'clock. The sun has only just come up. Well, I say the sun, it's light. It's still another cloudy and very rainy day. And about 40 k's out of town, we finally came to the end of the bitumen trail. And today is all about this. Queensland trails that have copped a lot of rain, not just last night, but over the last couple of weeks. And the conditions are far from perfect. It's very slippery out there. The trails are getting pretty cut up, and today is going to be a very long day of trying to negotiate and stay concentrating on these very challenging conditions. Well, as you can see, the conditions have improved. We started off in some pretty horrible rainy things this morning, and it's actually cleared up. We're actually seeing some blue sky now. Fleet of Amaroks behind me doing very nicely. Some very slippery conditions. Didn't get stuck once, despite some really challenging crossings. A lot of mud leaking onto the roads. But right behind me here, I have this sign that I'd like to bring to your attention. This sign is very useful to the road traveller. Lots of information on there regarding where we are. But what this sign says to me in particular is we're not close to anything. And that's exactly how I feel right now. It is just past 7 AM on Wednesday morning, and last night we didn't get the dramatic change to beautiful clear skies, and unfortunately it has continued raining throughout the night. And as you can see, the way to Birdsville is still closed. We were told 7 o'clock this morning was when we'd get an announcement and an update as to whether we would be able to get through, and this is the only way to where we want to be. So for now, unfortunately it's just a matter of sitting tight and waiting for better news. But a short time later, we got the news we were praying for. We are good to go. I haven't even finished my ham, cheese and tomato toasty, but I'm not going to because I'm so excited. The road is open, we are on our way. Now I've spent enough time in this new model to know I'm pretty impressed already, but there's nothing like a few thousand kilometres in a car to really tell you exactly what it's like. But actually, I haven't really found any gremlins with the Amarok. In fact, all that's happened is it's just compounded some of those initial drive impressions I'd got. And one of the most notable things is the way this car rides. Out on some of these unsealed tracks, which we've been spending a significant amount of time on, it glides along and is very relaxing. Now, a car with a leaf-sprung rear axle like this often can be a little bit punishing, and some models even exhausting to spend time in. But the beautiful ride of this car continues despite it being loaded up. Now, I expected, because of its excellent manners, when you don't have anything in the back, it might be a bit compromised when loaded up, but absolutely not the case. It's beautiful on these roads. It absorbs all but the nastiest imperfections, and like I say, hour after hour on this car every day has been pretty much a pleasure. A car like this also has to be able to hold its own off-road. So fine on road, plenty of time behind the wheel on long, straight, unsealed roads. Big tick there. But when it comes to the off-road, this car has to be able to do that in equal measure. I'm pleased to say it absolutely can. One of the most impressive features of this vehicle is just how easy it is to point at a challenging off-road scenario and get through without issue. It's partly down to this simple dial to pick your driven wheels type, but also a number of really simple and easy to understand drive modes. So on those really nasty unsealed roads that had loads of water on them, boggy and slippery, hit the slippery mode, makes sense. And then when you're heading up into the sand, there's a mode for that as well. My only slight criticism is that 10-speed automatic transmission is fantastic on road scenarios, but when it comes to really on the limits of traction, occasionally it wants to change a gear right when you really need that uninterrupted power. Other than that, it's actually a really smooth system. Coupled with that V6 diesel up front, this car was absolutely made for this kind of adventure. I absolutely love this interior. Even after spending extensive time, hour after hour, it just doesn't get old. The unique seats, the Volkswagen, perfectly bolstered. They don't get too firm after extended time behind the wheel. Speaking of the wheel, beautifully ergonomic. That's unique to this car as well. It feels like a Volkswagen from the start, and it doesn't get tiring towards the end either. It's also a very quiet cabin, and over the last few days, we've really had a good chance to test just how it responds to nasty surfaces. Corrugation's classic in this part of the world, and also slippery mud and a bit of gravel too. Everywhere we've gone, it's been a really nice serene cabin. It's just relaxing. You get to the end of a long drive and you don't feel like you've done anywhere near the kilometres. Perhaps the only mark to point is fuel consumption as well. Now, the kind of driving we're doing is never conducive for particularly good frugal motoring, but even so, if I said 13 litres per 100 kilometres, that's pretty respectable for a car at an engine of this size and also doing the kind of motoring we are. Don't forget we're also loaded up as well, so we're probably getting somewhere close to GVM. The four-wheel drive system in this thing is just so simple to use, and we've tackled perhaps some of the slipperiest and nastiest and most hostile routes I've ever seen in Australia. Weeks of rain turned some of these surfaces into an absolute quagmire of that nasty combination of slippery clay and also some gravel mixed in as well. But it's almost impossible to phase the Amarok. Anywhere we've gone, it's responded with fantastic traction, and at times it's been an absolute hoot. None of that nervousness or anxiety that we're not going to get where we're going. And it's just increased every bit of confidence I had in this car from the start. As to where we're headed, well, I'm not going to tell you just yet, but the signs are looking pretty good. We're going to make it after all. After 4 days, thousands of kilometres, and more cheeseburgers and pies than I care to remember, we have arrived finally here at the most remote music festival in the world. This is the Big Red Bash. Held each year in Outback Queensland, a short drive from Birdsville, the Big Red Bash celebrates its 10th anniversary this year, with 10,000 people making the journey to share the milestone. There are world-class performers, fantastic food, dune surfing, the Nutbush world record, and not a single shower. Perfect. As if the Amarok hadn't worked hard enough already, it's put to work during the festival, with punters able to take one for a test drive over Little Red Dune and into the desert behind. And the Disability Drive event makes sure even those with disabilities don't miss out on the stunning view from the top of Big Red. It would be unrealistic to set out on a road trip like this, covering 3 states and over the course of a week, and not expect some kind of adversity. But actually, having to think on our feet and a little few twists here and there have made this adventure even more memorable. The one thing that hasn't missed a beat and been completely stoic and dependable is the Volkswagen Amarok. Between it and the Big Red Bash, it's nicely proven that sometimes an adventure and the journey can be just as spectacular as the destination.